Hello, friends. So I've been going through your lesson games that you guys have been completing, and I pulled some of your most frequently missed questions. So I just wanted to kind of go over those with you and give you a little bit of background information, so you had that going forward. So what I'm going to do is I've got a Quizlet pulled up on the screen here, and I'm just going to go through those with you, kind of flashcard style. And then that way you've got the answers if you want them. And I'm also going to link the Quizlet because you can go through and play it if you want to. They've got it kind of set up where you can play some fun different games with them. So I'm going to link those as well if you want that. But I'm just going to go through these questions with you and kind of give you some background information. And if you still have questions, you can send me a message and I'll get with you. Okay, so the first question says, Paleolithic people were different from Neolithic people because, and then we're going to click and it'll tell us our answer. So Paleolithic people rarely practiced trade. We know that Paleolithic people were mostly hunters and gatherers. So they were getting their own food instead of trading for other things, which is going to come later in the Neolithic age. So next question says, which development occurred after Neolithic people made permanent shelters? So we know that they started having permanent homes when they started producing their own food and that stable food supply. So what came from having permanent shelters? They started living in communities. So when they could stay in one spot, people congregated together and then they lived in communities kind of with each other. Okay, next question. Describe what someone who lived during the Neolithic age might be doing. So this was worded a little bit different on the lesson game, but I kind of changed it to fit what we were doing. So we know that during the Neolithic age, they had a stable food supply, which meant they had time to do different things that weren't kind of like quote unquote like life essentials, like finding food and water and things like that, because they already had it. So they were practicing developing different skills. So one of those skills was making baskets. So that is why they had time to do that, because they weren't so worried about finding food and water and shelter every day. All right, next question. How did Assyrian kings relate to Assyrian gods? So we've talked a ton about how rulers of civilizations related to their religions that they had. So Assyrian kings related to Assyrian gods in a special kind of way, in that they were required to obey those gods. So a lot of times the rulers did not have to obey the gods, and they could kind of do what they want. This is a little bit different. So they're required to obey what the gods have kind of set forth. So it's a little bit different than what we've seen in some other civilizations. Okay. Ooh. Oh no, I showed you the answer. Okay. The collection of ancient Jewish writings that interpret the laws and teachings of the Hebrew Bible is called the Talmud. I already showed you the answer. But that is what they're using to interpret the laws and the teachings that are in the Hebrew Bible. And that's Judaism, or Jewish writings. So the teachings of Judaism are written down. This one was a little bit of a trick question. The answer is in 3 different places. So one is the Talmud, one is the Torah, and then one is the Hebrew Bible. So those Jewish teachings are written down in those 3 places. Which of the following is true of Shang writing? So this is what we talked about right before we left school. So this one's probably freshest on your memory. But we know that Shang writing, we talked about, looked like modern day Chinese characters in a way. So it actually stood for words instead of sounds. So not like our alphabet where we know that the letter S makes a S sound. Theirs stood for a word. So like one character or like one letter stood for a word instead of like a sound like we would have. And then which of the following is a possible reason the Shang Dynasty ended? So we also talked about this one right before we left. And the answer is a couple of different things. So we know that they were at constant warfare, which weakened their army quite a bit. We also know that the Shang rulers lived very, very lavish lifestyles, and they spent way too much money, which hurt their economy. And we also know that the Zhou, it's spelled with the Z, but it's pronounced Zhou, army attacked them and won. So they ended up overthrowing the Shang Dynasty. So those were 3 like major things that kind of combined together to hurt and kind of eventually end the Shang Dynasty. So kind of keep that in mind. So if you've got any questions or you have other questions that you want me to maybe address on the next one, I will do that. Thank you for watching. Bye.